Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora's edge, watching the stars drift by through the main window. The ship had been flying through empty space for 3 weeks now, mapping new star systems at the edge of known space. It was quiet work, but Jake knew it was important. Someone had to find out what was out there in the dark. The bridge was calm and peaceful. His crew worked at their stations, running scans and checking systems. Lisa Chang sat at the communications console, listening for any signals from space. Dr. Ben Cooper was at the science station, studying readings from nearby planets. Chief Engineer Rick Stone was below in the engine room, making sure everything ran smoothly. Jake had been a ship captain for 12 years. He had seen many strange things in space, but this mission felt different. They were farther from Earth than any human ship had ever gone before. Out here, they were truly alone. "Captain," Lisa called out suddenly. Her voice was excited, picking up something strange on the long-range sensors. Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of something?" Lisa frowned at her screen. "It's a signal, but not like anything I've seen before. The frequency is completely unknown, and it's very faint, like it's coming from really far away." "How far?" Jake asked. "At least 12 light years. Maybe more," Lisa said. "But that's not the weird part. The signal is repeating the same pattern over and over. It sounds like ... double quotes." "Like what?" Jake said. "Like someone calling for help," Lisa whispered. Dr. Cooper looked up from his station. "Can you clean up the signal? Make it clearer?" Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "I'm trying, but it's really weak." "Wait, ... I think I can, ... She paused, listening carefully through her headphones. "There. I've got it." A strange sound filled the bridge. It was unlike anything the crew had ever heard. High-pitched clicks and whistles mixed with deep, rumbling tones. The pattern repeated every 30 seconds, exactly the same each time. "That's definitely not human," Rick said, coming up from the engine room. "And it's not like any of the other alien signals we've recorded." Dr. Cooper was already working on his computer. "Give me a few minutes. I might be able to decode it." Jake watched his science officer work. Ben was the smartest person on the ship, maybe the smartest person Jake had ever known. If anyone could figure out what the aliens were saying, it was him. 20 minutes passed. The bridge was silent except for the strange alien signal repeating over and over. Finally, Ben looked up with a shocked expression on his face. "I've got a translation," he said. "But you're not going to believe this." "Try me," Jake said. Ben cleared his throat. The message says, "To any who can hear this cry across the void. We are the Cathara of the third world of the bright star of Verdania. Death comes to our home. The swarm devours all in its path. We have heard stories of the Deathworlders from Sol, the warriors who know no fear. If you exist, if you are real, please help us. We are dying." The bridge fell completely silent. Jake felt his heart start beating faster. "Deathworlders from Sol. They're talking about us." "It seems like it," Ben said. "It was our sun. And Earth is definitely what most aliens would call a death world." Lisa shook her head. "Do they even know about us? We've barely met any other species." "Word travels fast in space," Ben said. "Stories get bigger as they spread. Maybe we're already famous and we don't know it." Jake studied the star charts on the main screen. "Can you find where this signal is coming from?" "Already on it," Ben said. He pointed to a red dot on the display. "The Verdania system. 12.3 light years from here? 3 planets, 1 in the habitable zone." "And you said someone called the swarm is attacking them?" Jake asked. "That's what the message says. They're asking for help from, quote, the warriors who know." "No fear," Rick laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Warriors who know no fear? Have they met us? I was scared just yesterday when the coffee machine broke down." "That's not the point," Jake said. "Someone out there is in trouble. They're calling for help." Captain Lisa said carefully, "We're just one ship. If there's really some kind of swarm attacking a whole planet, what can we do?" Jake looked around at his crew. They were good people. All of them. They had families back on Earth, dreams and plans for the future. He had no right to ask them to risk their lives for aliens they had never met. But then he thought about the message. The fear in those alien words even translated into English. Someone was dying out there, and they had called out to humanity for help. "We're going to find out what's happening in the Verdania system," Jake said. "Need help? We're going to give it to them," Sir Rick said. "With respect, we don't know anything about this swarm. We don't know how dangerous it is. We don't know how dangerous a lot of things are until we face them," Jake replied. "Did I? Know one thing. If someone is calling for help and they think we're their only hope, then we have to try." Lisa nodded slowly. "The captain is right. We can't just ignore this." "Ben, how long to get to Verdania?" Jake asked. "At maximum speed?" "About 6 days," Ben said. "Then start plotting a course. Rick, I want the engines ready for a long jump. Lisa, keep monitoring that signal. If it changes or stops, I want to know immediately." As his crew prepared the ship for the journey, Jake stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, aliens were fighting for their lives. They had heard stories about humans and decided to call for help from the warriors of the death world called Earth. Jake just hoped they could live up to those stories. 6 days later, the Aurora's Edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Verdania system. What Captain Jake Morrison saw on the main screen made his blood run cold. The outer planets were dying, where there should have been ice and rock. Jake could see massive dark shapes attached to the planet's surfaces like giant leeches. The shapes pulsed and moved, slowly consuming everything they touched. "My God," Dr. Ben Cooper whispered from his station. "What are those things?" Lieutenant Commander Tony Blake, the ship's tactical officer, ran a scan of the system. His face went pale as he read the results. "Captain, I'm reading over 300 alien ships in this system. They're not like any ships I've ever seen." Jake looked at the tactical display. The enemy ships looked more like living creatures than machines. They were long and segmented, like giant insects floating in space. Some were small, about the size of fighters. Others were enormous, bigger than Earth's largest space stations. "They're organic," Ben said in amazement. "These aren't built ships, they're grown." "That doesn't matter," Jake said. "What matters is what they're doing to this system." Lisa Chang spoke up from her communications station. "Captain, I'm still receiving the distress signal, but it's much weaker now. I think... I think most of the people sending it are gone." Jake felt anger building in his chest. They had come as fast as they could, but they might already be too late. "Can you locate the source of the signal?" "Working on it," Lisa said. Fingers danced over her controls. "Got it. It's coming from the asteroid belt between the second and third planets." "Take us there," Jake ordered, "but keep us hidden. I want to know what we're dealing with before they know we're here." The Auroras. Edge moved carefully through the asteroid field. Chief Engineer Rick Stone had modified the engines to run almost silently. They slipped between the large rocks like a ghost ship. "Contact," Tony announced. "I'm reading several ships hiding in the asteroids. They're not like the attackers. These look ... peaceful." On the main screen, Jake could see a small group of ships, unlike anything humans had ever built. They were smooth and curved, with no sharp edges or weapons visible. They looked like they were made of living coral rather than metal. "I'm receiving a transmission," Lisa said. "It's on the same frequency as the distress signal." "Put it through," Jake said. A new voice filled the bridge. It was soft and musical, but Jake could hear the fear in it even through the translation. "Unknown vessel, please identify yourself. If you are with the swarm, we surrender. We have no more weapons to fight you with." Jake stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship Aurora's Edge. We received your distress call. We're here to help." There was a long pause. Then the voice came back, filled with hope and disbelief. "Humes, you are the Deathworlders from Seoul. You actually came." "Yes, we came," Jake said. "Who am I speaking with?" "I am Zathera of the Cathera. I cannot believe you are real. We thought the stories were just myths." "We're real," Jake said, "and we want to help. Can we meet face to face?" Another pause. "Yes. But be careful. The swarm has hunters everywhere. If they find you, we'll be careful," Jake promised. An hour later, Jake and Dr. Cooper were aboard. A Cathara ship. The alien vessel was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls seemed to be alive, pulsing gently with soft light. The air smelled like flowers after rain. Zethara was waiting for them in what seemed to be the ship's main room. She was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large eyes that reminded Jake of a deer. Her people looked fragile, like they might break if someone spoke too loudly. "Thank you for coming," Zethara said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "We did not think anyone would answer our call." "Tell us about the swarm," Jake said. "What are we fighting?" Zethara's large eyes filled with tears. "They call themselves the Vractor. They came from the dark between stars 6 months ago. At first, we tried to talk to them, to understand what they wanted." "What did they want?" Dr. Cooper asked. "Everything," Zethara said. "They consume entire worlds. They eat the plants, the animals, even the people. Nothing is left when they are finished." Jake felt sick. How many ships do they have? Hundreds. Maybe thousands. They breed more ships from the matter they consume. Every planet they destroy makes them stronger. Tony Blake had stayed aboard the Aurora's Edge, monitoring the enemy fleet. His voice came through Jake's communicator. "Captain, I'm reading movement. In the swarm, a group of about 50 ships is heading toward the inner system." Jake looked at Zethara. "Do people have any weapons at all?" She shook her head sadly. "We are a peaceful people. We build ships to explore and learn, not to fight. We do not even understand how war works." "How many of your people are left?" Dr. Cooper asked gently. "Perhaps 10,000 scattered in small groups throughout the asteroids, our homeworld." Zethara's voice broke. "Our homeworld is gone. The swarm has been feeding on it for weeks." Put his hand on the alien's shoulder. Her skin was warm and soft, like touching a flower petal. "We're going to help you, promise." "But you are only one ship," Zethara said. "How can you fight hundreds?" Jake smiled grimly. "You'd be surprised what humans can do when someone needs help. But we're going to need your help too. Our help. But we know nothing of fighting." "Maybe not," Jake said. "But you know things we don't. Your ships, your technology. If we work together, we might have a chance." Dr. Cooper was examining the living walls of the Cathara ship. "This biotechnology is incredible. These ships can heal themselves, can't they?" "Yes," Zethara said. "Confused? Is that unusual?" "It's very unusual," Cooper said excitedly. "Jake, if we could combine their healing technology with our weapons." Jake nodded. He was starting to see possibilities. "Zethara, are you willing to fight alongside us, even if it means learning to hurt others?" The alien looked frightened, but then her expression hardened with determination. "The swarm killed my family, my friends, my entire world. Yes, I will learn to fight." "Good," Jake said. "Then let's get started. We have a lot of work to do, and not much time to do it." As they began planning their desperate defense, Jake couldn't help but think about the odds against them. Just one human ship and a handful of peaceful aliens against a swarm of hundreds of bioships. But humans had faced impossible odds before, and they had a reputation to live up to. 3 days had passed since the humans met the Cathara. Captain Jake Morrison watched from the bridge as his crew worked with the aliens to prepare for battle. It was not going well. Security Chief Maria Santos was trying to teach a group of Cathara how to use weapons. The aliens kept dropping the guns and backing away whenever Maria showed them how to aim and fire. "I cannot do this," one of the Cathara said, his voice shaking. "It feels wrong to hurt another living thing." Maria tried to be patient, but Jake could see the frustration on her face. "Look, I understand this is hard for you, but if you don't learn to fight, the swarm will kill you all." "Perhaps there's another way," the alien said hopefully. "Perhaps we can talk to them." "We already tried talking," Maria said. "They ate your planet instead of listening." Dr. Ben Cooper was having better luck working with Zethara on the technology exchange. The Cathara had shown him how their bioships could heal damage by growing new parts. In return, Ben was teaching them about human weapons and shields. "This is fascinating," Ben said, running his hands along the living wall of a Cathara ship. The biomaterial responds to electrical signals. We could program it to form armor plating when it detects incoming weapons fire. Zethra watched nervously as Ben attached a human computer to her ship's nervous system. Will this hurt my ship? No more than getting a vaccination hurts you, Ben said. We're just teaching it some new tricks. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Rick Stone was in the Aurora's Edge engine room with a Cathara engineer named Veltara. They were trying to figure out how to combine human and Cathara technology. Your people's approach to engineering is completely different from ours, Rick said, wiping sweat from his forehead. You grow your machines instead of building them. Veltara touched one of the human engine components with curiosity. And your people force metal and electricity to obey you. It seems so violent. Violence isn't always bad, Rick said. Sometimes you need to force things to work when lives are at stake. On the bridge, pilot Ellen Davis was reviewing the latest scout reports. She had been flying reconnaissance missions in the asteroid field, learning about the Vractor ships and their movement patterns. Captain Ellen said, looking up from her flight data, I've been watching how the swarm ships move. They're fast, but they're not very smart individually. They seem to move like a school of fish, all following the same basic pattern. What do you mean? Jake asked. Well, when I got close to a group of them yesterday, they all turned toward me at exactly the same time. Same angle, same speed. It's like they're all controlled by the same mind. Dr. Cooper looked up from his work with interest. That matches what we've learned from the Kithara. They say the Vractor have a hive mind. All the smaller ships are controlled by the bigger ones. Could be useful, Jake said. If we can disrupt their communication somehow, ... Lieutenant Commander Tony Blake interrupted from his tactical station. Captain, we've got movement. A small group of Vractor ships is heading this way. Looks like about 20 ships. Jake felt his heart start beating faster. Are they scouts? Or attackers? Hard to tell, sir. They're moving slowly, like they're searching for something. Red alert, Jake ordered. All ships prepare for combat. The next few minutes were chaos. The Human-Cathara alliance had been planning and preparing, but they had not actually fought together yet. No. They were about to find out if they're desperate. Partnership could work. Ellen Davis climbed into her fighter and launched from the Aurora's Edge. Behind her, 3 Cathara pilots followed in their own small ships. The aliens had never flown in combat before, and Ellen could hear they're nervous. Breathing over the communication system? Stay close to me, Ellen said. Do exactly what I do when I do it. The Vractor ships spotted them immediately. The enemy vessels were ugly things, looking like giant beetles with weapons grafted onto their shells. They moved toward the human, and Cathara ships with hungry eagerness. Ellen had been flying fighters for 8 years. She had quick reflexes and good instincts. But as the first Vractor ship opened fire, she realized something that made her blood run cold. The enemy ship was fast, much faster than it should have been for something so large. Ellen barely managed to dodge the first wave of weapons fire. Break formation, she shouted to the Kithara pilots. Split up and use the asteroids for cover. But the Cathara pilots were too slow. One of them flew straight into a Vractor energy beam and exploded in a ball of fire. Watched her alien ally die. Ellen, get out of there. Tony Blake's voice crackled over the radio from the Aurora's Edge. You're outnumbered. Not yet, Ellen said through gritted teeth. She spun her fighter around a large asteroid and came up. Behind one of the Vractor ships, her weapons tore into its organic hull, and the enemy ship screamed as it died. The sound was horrible. It was not the explosion of a machine, but the death cry of a living creature. Ellen had killed things before, but never something that sounded so much like it was in pain. The remaining Cathara pilots heard the scream too. One of them stopped flying entirely and just floated in space, paralyzed by horror. I cannot do this, the alien pilot said over the radio. It is too terrible. Vractor ships swooped down on the motionless Cathara vessel. Ellen tried to intercept, but she was too far away. The enemy weapons tore the alien ship apart. Ellen felt rage building inside her. These creatures were not just attacking the Cathara. They were using the aliens' own kindness against them. The Cathara were too gentle to fight back properly, and the Vractor knew it. That does it, Ellen said. She stopped trying to be careful and went on the attack. What happened next would later be called the Asteroid Field Massacre. Ellen Davis, a human pilot from the Death World called Earth, showed the galaxy what 8 years of combat training and a lifetime of survival instincts could do. Against an enemy that had never faced real predators, she moved through the Vractor, formation like a shark through a school of fish. Her fighter twisted and turned in ways that should have been impossible, using the asteroid field like a three-dimensional maze. The enemy ships tried to follow her movements but kept crashing into rocks or each other. Within 10 minutes, 15 Vractor ships were dead. The remaining 5 fled back toward the main swarm, probably to report what they had seen. Ellen returned to the Aurora's edge, shaking with adrenaline. As she climbed out of her fighter, she found Captain Morrison waiting for her. "Good work, pilot," Jake said, "but we lost to Catharo ships." "I know, sir," Ellen said quietly. "They're too gentle for this kind of fighting. The Vractor are using their compassion against them." Jake nodded grimly. "Then we'll have to be strong enough for all of us." As the crew prepared for the next attack, word of the skirmish spread through both the human and Cathara ships. The aliens had seen what a single human pilot could do against overwhelming odds. For the first time since the swarm arrived, some of them began to hope that maybe, just maybe, the Deathworlders really could save them. The news of Ellen Davis's victory in the asteroid field spread quickly through the small fleet of human and Cathara ships. But Captain Jake Morrison knew they had bigger problems coming. The 5 Vractor ships that escaped would report back to the main swarm. Soon hundreds of enemy ships would come looking for them. "We need to be ready," Jake told his senior officers during their morning meeting. "The real battle is coming, and we can't win it the same way Ellen won her fight." Dr. Ben Cooper had been working with Cythera for 2 days straight, barely stopping to eat or sleep. The results of their partnership were starting to show. Several Cathara ships now had human weapons attached to their living hulls, and the bioships were learning to form armor when attacked. "The integration is working better than I hoped," Ben reported. "The Cathara bioships can adapt our technology and make it part of themselves. We're creating something completely new." Communications specialist Paul Wright had been working on a different problem. The humans in Cathara needed to be able to talk to each other instantly during battle, but their communication systems were completely different. "I think I've got it figured out," Paul said, showing Jake a small device. This translator can convert human radio signals into the bioelectric pulses the Cathara use. "We can all talk to each other in real time now." Chief Engineer Rick Stone and the Cathara engineer Veltara had become an unlikely team. Rick's practical human engineering, combined with Veltara's organic technology, was producing weapons that neither species could have made alone. "Look at this," Rick said, holding up what looked like a living metal tube.
Right.
"It's a missile that can think for itself." Veltara grew the guidance system from modified brain tissue, and I added the explosive warhead. Veltara looked proud and worried at the same time. "My people have never created anything designed to cause harm. Feels strange. But also, necessary." Meanwhile, Security Chief Maria Santos had given up trying to teach the Cathara to use weapons. Instead, she was training them to do other jobs during battle. Some would handle medical duties, others would manage communications, and a few would pilot ships to rescue survivors. "We're playing to everyone's strengths," Maria explained to Jake. "The Cathara are natural healers and communicators. Let them do what they're good at while we handle the fighting." Medical officer Dr. Kate Allen was amazed by what she learned. From working with Cathara healers, their biotechnology could regrow lost limbs in hours and heal wounds that would kill a human. Combined with human medical knowledge, they could save lives that would have been impossible to save before. Captain Kate said, "If we survive this, the medical advances we could make together would change everything. The Cathara can literally bring people back from the edge of death." 2 days after Ellen's fight, the main Vector swarm began moving toward the asteroid field. Long-range sensors showed over 200 bioships heading their way, including several massive vessels the size of space stations. "This is it," Jake announced to the combined fleet. "Everyone knows their jobs. Humans will engage the enemy directly. Cathara ships will provide support and rescue operations. Stay calm, Stay focused, and remember that we're fighting for the survival of an entire species. The battle plan Jake had developed was complex but simple to understand. The human and Cathara ships would use the asteroid field like a fortress, hiding among the rocks and striking at the enemy from unexpected angles. The Vractor ships were fast in open space, but they were clumsy when they had to navigate around obstacles. Pilot Ellen Davis was leading a squadron of 6 fighters, 3 human and 3 Cathara. The alien pilots were still nervous about combat, but they trusted Ellen after seeing what she could do. Remember, Ellen told her squadron, "We're not trying to destroy the whole swarm. We just need to confuse them and make them angry. Get them to chase us into the asteroid field where our bigger ships are waiting." Navigator Susan Kelly was aboard the Aurora's Edge, plotting courses through the asteroid field that would bring the enemy ships into perfect positions for ambush. Her job was to make sure the human and Cathara ships could move quickly through the rocks while the enemy got lost and confused. "I've mapped 17 different escape routes," Susan reported. "If things go bad, we can disappear into the asteroids and regroup." Weapons specialist Greg Miller had spent the last week modifying every weapon on the Aurora's Edge, working with Cathara biotechnology. He had created ammunition that could adapt to different types of targets. "These new rounds will eat through Brector bioarmor like acid," Greg explained. "The Cathara showed me how to make bullets that are alive and hungry." As the enemy fleet approached, Jake could see the true size of what they were facing. The Vractor ships moved like a living river of death, flowing through space toward the asteroid field. At the center of the formation was a massive vessel that dwarfed everything around it. "That's their command ship," Tony Blake reported from his tactical station. "It's over 5 kilometers long, reading thousands of life signs inside it." Dr. Cooper studied the sensor readings of the giant ship. "Jake, I think that's not just their command ship. It's their queen. The whole swarm is controlled from inside that thing." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If they could somehow destroy or disable the queen ship, the entire swarm might fall apart. But getting close to it would be almost impossible. "One problem at a time," Jake said. "First, we have to survive the initial attack." The Vractor swarm reached the edge of the asteroid field and began spreading out to search for their prey. Smaller ships moved quickly between the rocks, while the larger vessels stayed in open space to provide support. Ellen Davis and her fighter squadron were the first to make contact. They appeared suddenly from behind a large asteroid and attacked a group of Vractor scouts. The enemy ships were caught completely by surprise. "Target-rich environment," Ellen said calmly as her weapons tore into the enemy formation. "All squadrons begin hit-and-run attacks." The battle for the Verdania system had begun. Human fighters danced between the asteroids like deadly ghosts, appearing just long enough to kill their targets before vanishing again. The Cathara support ships moved like living shadows, rescuing damaged fighters and providing supplies to the combat ships. But Jake knew this was just the beginning. Real test would come when the Vractor Queen ship decided to enter the asteroid field itself. When that happened, they would need a miracle to survive. As explosions lit up the space around him, Jake Morrison smiled grimly. Humans had always been good at making their own miracles. Today, they would find out if they were good enough to save an entire alien species. The Deathworlders were about to show the galaxy what they were really capable of. The battle had been raging for 3 hours. Captain Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the Aurora's Edge as human and Cathara ships fought desperately against the Vractor swarm. They were holding their own, but barely. Ellen Davis and her fighter squadrons had destroyed over 50 enemy ships, but more kept coming. The Vractor seemed to have endless numbers. For every ship they killed, 2 more appeared to take its place. Captain Dr. Ben Cooper called out from his station. "I'm reading massive movement in the enemy fleet. The Queen ship is moving toward the asteroid field." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Queen ship was enormous, over 5 kilometers long and bristling with weapons. If it entered the asteroid field, their carefully planned defenses would be useless. "All ships fall back to defensive position 7, Jake ordered. "Prepare for heavy contact." The Vractor Queen ship moved slowly but steadily toward the asteroids. As it approached, Jake could see smaller ships launching from its sides like insects swarming from a hive. Hundreds of them, more than they had faced so far. "We can't fight all of those," Tony Blake said from his tactical station. "We'll be overwhelmed in minutes." Dr. Cooper suddenly looked up from his computer with excitement. "Jake, I think I know how to stop them. Remember how Ellen said they all move like a school of fish? I've been studying their communication patterns." "Did you find?" Jake asked. "The Queen ship is sending out constant control signals to all the smaller ships. It's like a radio broadcast, but using bioelectric pulses. If we could disrupt that signal somehow, the smaller ships would lose their coordination," Jake finished. "They'd be confused, maybe even turn on each other." "Exactly. But there's a problem. To disrupt the signal, someone would have to get inside the Queen ship and plant a virus directly into its nervous system." Jake stared at the massive enemy vessel on his screen. Getting inside it would be almost impossible. Getting back out would be even harder. "I'll do it," said a voice from behind them. They turned to see Zethara standing in the doorway to the bridge. Akethera had been working in the science labs below. "Absolutely not," Jake said. "It's too dangerous." "Captain Morrison," Zethara said quietly, "my people are dying because we cannot fight. But this is something I can do. I understand bioelectric systems better than any human. If I die trying, at least I will die fighting for my people." Jake could argue. Communications specialist Paul Wright spoke up. "Captain, incoming transmission from Ellen Davis. She says she has an idea." Ellen's voice crackled over the speakers. "Captain, I've been studying the Queen ship's defenses. There's a small opening near the rear section, probably for smaller ships to dock. If I could get a boarding party close enough, ... "It's suicide, Ellen," Jake said. "Maybe, but it's the only chance we have. And sir, I volunteer to lead the boarding party." Jake looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were scared, but they were determined. These people had come, all the way from Earth, to help aliens they had never met. Now they were willing to sacrifice their lives to save them. "All right," Jake said. "We do this together. Ellen, you'll pilot the boarding craft. Ben, you'll handle the technical side of planting the virus. Zethara, you'll guide them through the biosystems. And me, asked Security Chief Maria Santos. "You're going to make sure they all come back alive," Jake said. 20 minutes later, small boarding craft launched from the Aurora's edge. It was one of the modified Cathera ships. It's designed to look like debris floating in space. Inside were 4 people who might be about to save or doom the entire system. Ellen Davis piloted the craft carefully toward the Queen ship. The massive vessel loomed ahead of them like a living mountain. Up close, they could see that its hull was not metal, but some kind of organic material that pulsed with veins of light. "It's beautiful," Zethara whispered. "And horrible." "There's the docking port," Ellen said, pointing to a small opening in the ship's side. "I'm going to try to slip in while their fighters are distracted, the Aurora's edge and the other human." Ships had begun a massive attack on the front of the Queen ship, drawing attention away from the rear. Explosions lit up the darkness as weapons fire exchanged between the assailing fleets. Ellen guided the boarding craft through the chaos and into the docking port. They found themselves in a tunnel that looked more like the inside of a giant animal than a spaceship. The walls pulsed with a slow heartbeat, and the air was warm and humid. "The nervous system should be toward the center of the ship," Zethara said, consulting a scanner that could read bioelectric patterns. "But we'll have to get past the ship's immune system first." As if summoned by her words, shapes began moving in the tunnel ahead of them. They looked like a cross between spiders and jellyfish, floating through the air toward the intruders. "Offensive creatures," Maria Santos said, raising her weapon. "Stay behind me." The fight through the Queen ship was unlike anything the humans had ever experienced. The ship itself was fighting them, sending waves of defensive organisms to stop their advance. But Maria Santos had trained for combat her entire adult life. She cleared a path through the living corridors with deadly efficiency. Dr. Cooper worked frantically as they moved, preparing the virus that would disrupt the ship's control systems. It had to be perfectly calibrated to the Queen's specific bioelectric frequency, or it wouldn't work. Almost there, Zethara said as they reached a massive chamber at the heart of the ship. In the center was something that looked like a giant brain connected to thousands of pulsing cables. That's the command center. Ben Cooper approached the organic computer with his virus device. As he connected it to the neural network, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The Queen had realized what they were trying to do. How long? Yuena asked, watching the tunnel they had come from. More defensive creatures were approaching. 30 seconds, Ben said. Maybe less. Maria Santos stood guard at the entrance too. The chamber, her weapons cutting down anything that tried to get through. But there were too many of them. Some of the creatures got past her defenses. Zethara cried out as one of the spider-like things wrapped around her leg. Maria spun and killed the creature, but not before it had injected some kind of venom into the alien system. Zethara, Ellen shouted. I'm all right, the Cathara said, but Jake could see she was weakening. Did it work? Ben Cooper looked at his device and smiled. Virus uploaded successfully. In about 10 seconds, this queen is going to have the worst headache of her life. They felt it when the virus took effect. The ship's heartbeat rhythm became irregular, and the lights in the corridor began flickering. Through the walls, they could hear something that sounded like screaming. It's working, Ellen said, helping support Zethara as they ran back toward their ship. The Queen is losing control of the swarm. Outside in space, the effect was immediate and dramatic. The perfectly coordinated Vractor fleet suddenly fell apart. Ships that had been moving in formation began flying in random directions. Some crashed into asteroids. Others attacked their own allies. Captain Morrison watched from the Aurora's edge as the enemy fleet tore itself apart. Within minutes, hundreds of Vractor ships were destroyed by their own confused allies. The Queen's ship itself began to convulse and die. Its massive hull cracked open in several places, and smaller ships poured out like blood from a wound. But these ships were not attacking anything. They fled in all directions, no longer controlled by the hive mind. Ellen's boarding party made it back to the Aurora's edge just as the Queen's ship exploded. The blast lit up the entire system like a second sun, and when the light faded, the Vractor threat was over. In the days that followed, the surviving Kithara began the long process of rebuilding their civilization. They had lost their homeworld, but they were alive. And they had learned that there were others in the galaxy willing to help them. Captain Morrison received a message from Earth Command 2 weeks later. The story of the battle at Verdania had spread throughout human space. Other alien species were asking for help with their own problems, and Earth was preparing to send more ships to answer their calls. So what now? Ellen Davis asked, as the Aurora's edge prepared to leave the Verdania system. Jake Morrison looked out at the stars and smiled. Now we go see who else needs help. That's what Deathworlders do. The legend of humanity was just beginning.